For the price of the high calling in Jesus.
Keep it going.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Talking with Pastor. I am so delighted to be on this episode with this dear man of God who continues to move forward in God's kingdom. We have known each other for many years. I was blessed to see him come into his ministry and come into his calling as a preacher of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So I am once again humbled that he is on my show tonight. So I would like to welcome to some and present to others, Pastor Leonard Jones. Good evening, Pastor. How are you this evening?
I am blessed and highly favored. I'm honored to be with you, Thaddeus. I'm when you called me and asked me, it wasn't even a thought. You always call me, and we've always been close, and I'm always comfortable when you call me. So I'm honored, very honored to be here. And you know my family also, so it makes it easy.
So,
Thank you.
Pastor, it is once again a pleasure to have you on the show. As this show has been growing and been expanding with the ideology of getting to know the pastor. Most people don't have the opportunity, members or anybody who comes into the church of God, they don't get a chance to actually know who the pastor is, or they know that you are a pastor. That's all they know. They don't know anything else, but they don't know that you have the same struggles and the same trials and tribulations that everybody faced day to day. And so I just want you to kind of give a little bit inside about yourself. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? What schools did you attend? And what job occupation are you working?
Okay. First of all, I give honor to God, for He is truly the head of my life. If it had not been for His Son, Jesus Christ, I know I would not be here. I am a living testimony of what His power can do. My family, starting with my grandmother, she was a God-fearing lady. She was what they call an Eastern Star, always praying and going in the front yard, and I was a mess. I was the oldest of three boys, three grandboys, and the other two, my middle brother, Donnell, and my youngest brother, David, they lived simple lives. I was the one that was very complicated. And I went out, and of course, I graduated from Roosevelt Junior Senior High School, which is in Roosevelt, Long Island. I graduated a year after Eddie Murphy. I grew up with Eddie Murphy, good friend of mine. I worked for him for a couple of years. I was the one with the guys. Most likely, they all looked up to me. I was always the leader, and the expectations were always very high. What they were expecting from me. And it was difficult because it's hard to meet other people's expectations. They expected perfection. The jobs I had to be the best. I had to excel in school. My parents expected me to be a doctor. They sent me I went to the University of Buffalo for almost 3 years. Then I ran into a lot of issues, worldly issues, and which led me astray. For about 10 years, I was running around. At the age of 25 to about the age of 35, I was doing a lot of stuff that I shouldn't be doing. Drugs and, womanizing. I was married at 25 and wasn't being the right type of husband. Was living a life of a lot of with friends. The friends I hung out with led me to. I don't blame anyone. Every choice I made. Being the leader, I take responsibility for all my actions. And I was a disappointment to my mother. And I used to take money from her, and I used to threaten people. I lived in the streets for about 4 years, trying to make ends meet. Didn't know how I got there. I just ended up there. And it was sad because I did not know how to get out. All I saw was a lot of friends of mine dying, whether drug overdoses or ending up in jail. A lot of things. The last thing on my mind was ever going to the church and going to a service and serving God. it was the last thing. I was trying to, of course, knowing Eddie Murphy, get into show business. I did a little comedy at the Comic Strip Live. Did a lot of little things, but nothing really satisfied me. I always thought that God's people would never be filled unless they allow God's love to come into them. It's just that the world never really gave us what we wanted. We thought we wanted, but it never filled us with what God or what we thought what we really needed. And I learned that. And so at the age of 44, because between the ages of 35 and 44, I was still wandering, but confused. At the age of 44, I was walking down the street. I had just come out of a rehab. And it was funny because as I got out, there was a pack of drugs on the ground. And that was my first test. And I walked by it and I threw it in the sewer. And God was showing me that he took the taste away from me. Mm. He started taking away the drinking, the smoking, the drugging. I didn't even feel like cursing. I couldn't curse. I felt an urge to apologize to everyone that I hurt, that I lied to. I had an urge, I had an unction to go to everyone that I did wrong to ask for their forgiveness. Mm. And I started changing. I started feeling lighter. And the first thing I did was, there was a preacher on the corner of my block. His name was Elder Brown. And I didn't like going by his house because I knew he was a preacher and I didn't want him to see me or judge me. So one day I had just come out of rehab and he's driving down the street. And I said, he asked me, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Yes." And I went to church that week. It was so funny because I met him at this particular place for him to drive us to church. And I had to get changed because he wasn't taking his car. We got into a bus, but he left me. I went to get changed and I came back out. He was already gone. So I said, "God, why would this man of God not wait for me?" But I already had something in me that said, "Get to church." So what I did was I got a bus schedule and it told me what buses would meet me to take me to the church that I wanted to go to. Mm. And the next Sunday, I didn't need him to take me. So I went straight there on 2 buses and a train. And I went to the church and I saw everyone shouting and talking about God. And they were calling for people to come up and give their life to God, to Christ. And I ran up. I had no question about that. I ran up because I was tired. I was tired of living a life of despair, a life that wasn't filling. I don't know if I would have finished college and it would have been good enough. I was just complicated, very complicated. Mm. And so I had to really, when I got there, I started shouting and I was watching everyone else, but it was just more or less just filling in or fitting into what I saw. Okay. And then one day when I was praising God, something came over me. And I went up and I got on my knees and I asked God to forgive me. I mean, I really went in. I was tearing and shouting and I just lost it. I said, "God, whatever you want me to do, I will do." So I went to the bishop after service and I said, "I want to do something for God. I don't know what." He said, "What would you like to do?" I said, "Whatever. If I have to clean the bathroom, if I have to wait at the door and meet and greet people to come into church, whatever you have for me, I would accept." So he said, "Well, why don't you go into the deaconship?" So as a deacon, I would follow the chairman around to different churches and I saw a lot of the respect he was getting. And I said, it's nice to be a deacon and it felt good going with him, but it wasn't fulfilling enough. I wanted to tell people how good God was. I said, I need to go tell people. I wasn't scared. I wanted to go and let people know what God did for me. Mm. And so he said, "I want to put you into the ministry class." The ministry class was already a year in. It's normally about a 5-year class. Bishop Berry kept us for a long time. He wanted to make sure that we knew what we wanted. So when I graduated class, he put me in a church, one of our outreach churches with Sherry Williams as a co-pastor. Okay. And when I went over there, Lion of Judah, when I went over there, I was teaching Sunday school. And a lot of times it would be just be my mother and I'm teaching my mother about Christ or about Sunday school. And she loved it, but she would sit there, and then sooner or later it turned in from mom to other people, friends coming. Before I knew it, I had about 30 people in Sunday school. So I started thanking God for being seen. You know, I said, God, you know what? People want to hear me in the street. No one wanted to see me, but I'm here in a place where I could talk about you and people are listening. They didn't want to hear about me. They were watching the difference from how I was to what God was doing. They were more in awe of the change in my life, because a lot of people that I was teaching were people that were in the street with me. They were starting to come to church to see this change. And so being in Cathedral for a little while, my mother saw the change. She saw me do my first sermon. And one of the things I asked God for was for my mother to see the change in me. It took her about 6 months to come to church because, you know, she didn't, you know, when you say you're going to church, and she wasn't sure that I was doing what I said. So I ended up, after 6 months, she came and she saw it and she passed out. She couldn't believe that God could change someone like me. And so she became a believer. Even though she praised God before, that was when she became a believer, because she saw what God can do. And when I tell you I was the worst of the worst, it's hard to show that today, but I was. And my brother's here today. He can witness, because he was one of the people I used to take their money from. So I know he knows. He's a great witness to it. And so as I met my wife after I got ordained. My wife, Lavanya, who you know, and I didn't have any children. I was divorced, and I really didn't want a relationship. I really didn't want, but as I was studying in the ministry, I read the book of Timothy, and it said a pastor should have one wife. And I didn't know I was going to be a pastor, but all this stuff was starting to fill in. And I met my wife. My at the time, my girlfriend I don't believe in girlfriends, but my fiance, which is now my wife. And she has 4 children, a daughter and 3 sons. And I have so many grandkids, I probably lost count by now. I'm so excited. But when I met her, everything changed. It's like my life was completed. And God said, okay, now it's time. But the teaching and the preaching did not end there. That is what changed my life was, as much as God did for me, and I'm not going to get emotional because I feel the Spirit coming upon me. What changed my life was when I had my stroke in 2016. I was going to work. I was in security business. I was working for Easy Pass, and I was heading on the New Jersey Turnpike, getting off at exit 13, which is Elizabeth, New Jersey. And that's where the headquarters for Easy Pass is. And it's about an hour and 20 minutes ride from my house. And I get on there on the New Jersey Turnpike, and about 10 minutes after I get to my job, I pass out. I'm in the job and I pass out. No one knows what happened. They call an ambulance, and in the ambulance, I fell off the gurney. I fell off, and I actually injured my shoulder, where I cannot lift it up all the way. And I guess that's reminding me of almost like with Paul with the thorn, to remind me how good God is. But what the transition was, that is, when I was in this hospital, I was in a coma for about 5 or 6 days. And I was in the end of life room. And in the end of life room, there's 3 rooms that after so many days, we were predicted or expected to die. So they had us on ventilating machines and all kinds of tubes. I can show you a picture of all the tubes that I had, my throat, my mouth, my nose, my back, everything just to keep me alive. And they were talking about last will and testament. What do I want to do? And my wife came in, and she didn't want to hear that. And so the person in the first room, which is the worst, he was the worst. I was the third. It was the first room was the worst. Second room was the second. Third, I was in the third. But the person in the first room passed. So they started sliding us down. So now I'm in the second room, and I was only expected to live maybe a couple of hours. So then, because my organs were shutting down, I could not breathe. The machine had to keep me on. And this is before COVID. And then this person that's in the second room passed. So here I am in going into the first room. I was the next one expected to die. And I was in a vision, and I didn't know what was happening. I was in a vision, and in that vision, Thaddeus, God spoke to me. And I said to him, and I don't know why I had the nerve to even speak to God when he's in when I'm in his presence, but I spoke. And I thought I knew him. I went up to this big table, and I said, God, I'm ready to go. I'm tired because I'm helping everybody. I'm taking care of my mother. I'm taking care of anyone that asks me for help. I'm taking care of. I'm tired. I'm ready to go. So what he did was, he said, you don't know me. I said, but I know your word. I pray to you. I know about Jesus. He said, you don't know me. I said, I worked hard. He said, if you knew me, you would know that you can't get in by your works. And so I stopped talking. And he said, I can't take you right now because someone is praying for you. I said, what are you talking about? Someone's praying for you and your work is not finished. Thaddeus, at that moment, I started breathing and I came out of the coma. And God told me, I have one message to tell you. Tell your daughter, Daniqua, to answer her call before you do anything else. So I come out of the coma. They immediately called my wife over, who was losing her mind. She was arguing with God, said, listen, God, if you take my husband, you better take me, because it's a 2-for-1. And I understood she would lose it. So I said, honey, before I speak to you, I have a message. So my daughter comes in and I said, Daniqua, I'm giving you the message that was told to give to you. Answer your call. And she ran. She said, no way. I'm not doing what you do. I watch how you help people. I watch how you wear yourself out. I watch how you work, and then you go to church 6 days a week. I'm not doing that. I said, I'm just giving you the message. And then I come out of the hospital and they give me rehab and I catch myself. And the church that I was in as co-pastor ended because I didn't think my family didn't think I was strong enough to hold up all the things I was doing. Mm-hmm. So we went to Delaware. In Delaware, God was still speaking to me. He said, I'm going to give you people, your people, that I'm going to send to you that know you. That is one thing I've learned about a pastor. I don't believe you can be a lover of people without bringing people to you. I don't believe that you can love with the love of God and people not be attracted. I just don't think it could be that way, because something has to draw people to you, whether it's your testimony, whether the Spirit of God is in you, something has to bring them to you. And that's what happened. When I came out the hospital, so many people called me and left messages of encouragement and love, that they said, you need to have a place where we can talk to you. They didn't want to go to the big house. They wanted to see me and talk about Jesus, because I had a testimony to let them know that he saved my life. And so after having my family come back and everything coming, we moved to Delaware. And God gave me instructions. He said, I want you to, and this was after the pandemic, this was about 1.5 years ago. He said, I want you to open a Zoom. I want you to pay for the Zoom for 1 year, and I'm going to send you people. And I don't know if he was on Friday when I had the Zoom, but everyone that's on my Zoom is a depiction of my life. I have people on my Zoom from the time that I was in Roosevelt, Long Island, when I was 11 years old, that knew me way back then. I have people that knew me when I first came to the Bronx and stayed with my grandmother when I was on drugs and doing the negative stuff. I have people that saw me in the church that are pastors and preachers that are also on the Zoom, because they see what God has done for me and they see how my life has changed. My wife has about 15 to 20 people or our family members who did not know Jesus, who did not have a pastor, who did not have a witness, and they come onto the line. And I said to them, I was asked to direct them to the big house, but they don't want that. They want to hear someone that they saw or heard or knew has actually overcome? And how did you do it? They were questioning, how did they have, they were in awe of what they saw. And all I did was tell them it was only Jesus. He was the one that changed my life. My wife's family was very difficult. They don't fall for anything. I had to come in, God took the drinking away. I can't drink with my family. I don't drink. He took the taste away. I don't smoke. I can't have a joint with my boys. He took it from me. I don't have a desire to do any, I can't even curse. I used to be the worst mouth there was. The hate, you come at me, I'm going to win this argument. He took all that away. People say today, I love my wife so much. And people say, you give your wife so, you give her anything she wants. But I said, you wasn't there when my wife was crying to God for me, for my life. And God told me that I can't take you because somebody is praying for you. And the way I know it was her, when I went back, we went back a year later to thank the people at the hospital for the job they did to bring me back to life. And when I went in the hospital, that is, I did not recognize anybody that was there as a caregiver to help me in the hospital. Everyone that was there, they're telling me they did this and they did that. I did not recognize any of them. And I asked my wife, I said, honey, are you sure this is the right hospital? None of these people I recognize. And she told me that was the nurse that took care of you. That was the attendant. That was this, that was the technician. All these, she went down the line. And I said to him, well, I don't know y'all, but I don't know who took care of me, but I thank you. They said, don't thank us, thank your wife. Because while you were in there next to death, she was in there pleading to God for your life. She was pleading and crying and she was screaming. She said, you gave me this man and you are not going to take him. And so when people say to me, why do you treat your wife the way you do? Thaddeus, I am so blessed with this family. When I met my wife, I had nobody. She gave me children that I didn't have. She gave me that love that I had inside of me that I wanted to give. She allowed me to use it. My wife, since I met my wife and had this family, I had a really cheap job. When I met her, I became supervisor of security businesses. I was offered positions that I didn't even have the experience for. It's based on what they see in me. I love people. And we do marriage counseling, my wife and I. They don't want to go to see psychiatrists. They want to see us because they want to know, how do you have that kind of love? How do you love someone like that? It's because we both love God so much. And that's why I pastor. I pastor because I love people. And the love of God is in me to love people. And I will die doing that. And I don't care about what people think about me and how they feel how I love my family. Let me tell you, I've been waiting all my life, that is, to have a family. I did not have a family, and God gave me everything. I had nothing. And you're looking at someone that was from the streets that had nothing. I have a house now, a house that was built from scratch in Delaware. My wife has so much faith. When she told God, and who would think she can go to God and tell him anything? She said, you're not taking my husband because you gave him to me. And my wife said, let's go to Delaware. I said, honey, we don't make enough to get a new house. She said, yes, God does. God can give us anything. I quit my job in New York and moved to Delaware on faith. And God opened the door for me down here. So like I say, Thaddeus, I appreciate everything. I know God he showed me a vision. You're going to be teaching and preaching to so many people you're not even going to be able to count. I said, you know what? If I just get one, and I believe it starts with the family. God allowed me, not many people are able to have a family that would appreciate a pastor being part of the family, because when I came, they were doing their own thing. I didn't want to disturb anyone. All I did was I went to work. I took care of sick. I already had this in me, and it wasn't a burden. I wasn't tired, that is. I wasn't tired, because the joy of the Lord is my strength. I was grateful. And the reason that I did go to the hospital because I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't eating right. I was eating in weird hours. I was eating the wrong foods. Now I take care of myself. Now I want to live because now I have a job to do and I'm not going to stop. And the next time I go, if it be my time, I want to hear well done. I don't want to hear you don't know me. So I'm doing my best. I love it down in Delaware. I thank God for you asking me. And like I said, I'm probably the happiest man in the world. I don't even call myself a pastor. I call myself a friend. People call me. I even told my bishop. I said, she said, what label? What do you want to call yourself? And my teaching is called Salvation Teaching by Elder Leonard Jones. But everyone in line calls me pastor because they said, you're my pastor. I don't believe we demand ourselves to be pastor. I believe it commands itself. I believe people have to look at you as a pastor. I said, Bishop, if they call me pastor, I'll take that. But I'm not going to put myself as a pastor. God has to send his sheep to me. And so it turned from a teaching into you're my pastor. So that's my story. I love you. I love everybody. I'm just very grateful for my life today. Very grateful.
Well, Pastor, before you pretty much kind of answered most of my ask you in a nutshell. Yeah. But I do have a couple of more questions to ask you in regards to how has your ministry been moving throughout the pandemic, and where do you see your ministry going forward in the next 10 years?
Excellent. Okay, the pandemic is very, very important for people of God because so many people need prayer and they need hope. And through this pandemic, my wife and I and Daniqua, my daughter, and my grandson and my niece, my brother's daughter, we adopted her because we brought them in from Phoenix, Arizona. They were going through a lot of trials and tribulations. We took them in. And the first time we heard about COVID was, I think it was March 2019 that we heard about it, because we were part of the first group. We lived in Yonkers, New York, and one of the women from the school that was in New Rochelle, she was a teacher, she lived on our floor, and she contracted COVID. So as a result, she was on our floor and she went through the elevators, and somehow we caught it. And she was a Jewish lady, very nice, and her son was in the news. And so what he did was he made sure that she was able to get help and a vaccine. She was able to get the right nourishment she needed. They gave her the inside story, and she even made chicken soup. She made some for us. Once she knew we had it, she would leave it at our door. So we understood what COVID-19 was because we felt it and we went through it. That is, my wife ended up having, her lungs were filled with fluid. We wouldn't let her go to the hospital unless it was absolutely necessary, because at that time, people were going to the hospital and not coming out. I went through it, and they knew it must have been bad, because for me to miss work and not go out, it must have been a really tough disease. And so having experienced it through our family, we know how it is when you know or you feel as though death is near. So with this COVID-19 experience, showed me how important it is for us to first have the testimony that we made it through. And second of all, to give people hope and let them know what we did to get through the pandemic. And it led to, once we got through it, because you had to build up 10 days or 14 days at a time to go through it. My daughter has a lot of friends, Daniqua, a lot of friends, and they were concerned. And once we got to a point where we were okay, they asked her, they said, can you pray for us? So we opened up a prayer, she opened up some kind of prayer place on Instagram. And it was about close to maybe 1,000 people that would come on, and she'd asked me to come on and pray for them. And they were so thankful in chat for us praying for them. They were young people, and they were concerned about their parents, their loved ones that were older with pre-existing conditions. And so in that, I would come on and I would pray, and she would pray, and we would bring hope to people. And so many people were sending back of being grateful, and it led to the need to keep praying and feeding people that other people wouldn't want to go near. We would go and bring them food because someone bought us food. So this pandemic, we wanted people to know it wasn't the end. And if you have hope and faith, you can make it through, because God will bring you through just as long as you have faith. And it can be as little as a mustard seed. So we wanted people to know that if we can do it, you can do it. Because my wife, she went to one of those, what is it called? Not the hospital, but those centers you can go into, and they can give you some quick, medicine to help you get through it.
Okay.
And they told her that we prayed, and they said, no, she don't have to go to the hospital. Take this and just wait the 14 days out. And the fluid came out. So we know how bad it could have gone, because many people had fluid and it never came out, and they died suffocating. But we made it through, and we came through better than ever. So it gave us a more of a excitement, if you will, for God, showing us favor. So what do we do with it? We go out and we help others, and we encourage them, and we let them know it's going to be all right, because we felt like you feel. And we want you to know there is hope, and that, yes, some people aren't going to make it, but you know what? It's up to God. He's going to decide who's going. It's not based on what it looks like. It's really what God wants and what God's plan of salvation is. And if they choose to accept it, they'll be fine with it. Because let me tell you something, Thaddeus, we have to encourage people that, you know what, life after this is better than this. The hope that he promised us is better than this. And when we get there, it's the salvation that he promised will give us joy unspeakable. But we have to show him from our heart that, no, we didn't want to die. We wanted to work. So yes, the pandemic was a wake-up call for us. It showed that we had favor on our lives. It showed us that we had work to do, because so many people were drawn to us for an answer, and we worked together. My wife has so many friends that came to her, family members. They wanted to hear her testimony. Well, we thought you wasn't going to make it. Wow. How did it happen? Again, that's part of our ministry that we teach on Fridays. And then I told you, God showed me in the future, or whenever his timing is, you're going to have so many people listening, because I'm going to speak through you. I'm going to use you as a shell, as a vessel to bring my message. And I believe that I see my daughter, Daniqua. I see my niece, Kathy, coming aboard. She's a minister also. I see my wife being the best first lady in the world, because she has a past, and she's been through hell and back, and she's been through it, and she's seen it. So as far as in the future, if this thing gets lighter, I see myself with both a church without walls, and if I need a physical building, and God allows his salvation to be part of that, then so be it. But I see he's going to use us to help save so many people, that is, because my wife had near-death experiences. I've had near-death experiences. What does he need us for? Because he put a gift in us to give out. He's not going to let us die without giving this gift to whoever. The name of my ministry is called Whosoever Will. I love that, because we don't judge. That you don't have to fit a criteria. It's just come as you are. You don't have to meet standards. Come as you are. Just learn about this loving Jesus. And that's what we're about. So yes, in the future, I don't know because when he showed me really a church without walls, that is, he showed me so many that are just in awe of hearing it. And it's just, he's using me, but I'm in love with him. And that's what they see. How can you love a God that you can't see? I said, but I see him in my faith. I see him so clear. And when they look at you and they just can't believe that you, who is a sane man, thinks that way. I want to know what that's about. So that curiosity is leading people to Christ. And that's what I see myself showing people that are curious who Christ is. And they love it. It's making it a good taste, and not bashing him over the head with it. Showing him like he gave me his love his love, unconditional agape love. That's what brought me to Christ, not the church, not the church, not even the pastor. It was the Spirit that brought me to God. It woke me up and the veil was removed. So I don't know what the end is going to look like as far as on this earth. I don't know, Thaddeus, but I know in this short time that I've been here, a lot of people's lives have been changed. A lot of people's lives, including a lot of my family members, have been changed.
Well, I definitely appreciate that, Pastor Jones, from your lips to God's ears, because He will continue to bless, continue to keep us, and as He has always done, He has never forsaken us. And that I pray
Amen.
today that God will enlarge your territory, and I don't just mean your finances. I don't mean anything. I just mean enlarge your territory where your ministry will expand beyond not just Delaware, but beyond the world, and will be a beacon of light and of hope to somebody who will continue to recognize God is still in control, and that He will continue to move forward in your ministry and in what you love to do, and that is be who God has called you to be. And I pray that today that He will continue to enlarge your territory. That's your word today. Enlarge my territory, and He will do anything but fail for you. But as we wrap up this episode, I would just want you to give us when let us know when your ministry is having something, your Zooms and whatnot. Let that be known right now. And I would like you to give us an encouraging word for people who will be watching this episode, that they may continue to see the God in you.
Amen. Amen. First of all, my ministry is on Fridays at 7:30. It's Whosoever Will, teaching by Elder Leonard Jones. I will send I think I sent you a link, which you can send out. Um, you know, I love what you said about expanding the territory that God has put before me. And I see it clearer every day. And I would say to people, never give up hope. Never think that God can't use you. I don't care how sick you are. I don't care how bad you think you are, how illiterate you might think. Maybe you don't have the looks that appeal to people. Maybe you don't have the articulation in your speech. But God will put a gift of love in you. The Bible tells us that trust is good and faith is good, but the greatest of all these is love. I just believe through the actions that I've seen that when you show the love that God has put in you, you will bring all people unto him. I believe that if you trust God with the gifts that he gives you, you will bring all men. He will bring your enemies to him. God says we must love our enemies. You will bring hate. I preached the other day and I said, God deserves your sin. He worked for it. He worked for your hate. He worked for your distrust. Give it to him because he's the only one that can clean it up. We give our mess to other people. All they do is mess it up. God died to take our mess. He deserves to have it. Give it to him and watch what he does. He changes. He took my mess. He took my mess. He'll take your mess and change it from a common use to a spiritual. You won't even know who you are. He will clean you up. So I say to anyone that doesn't believe that they're worthy, you're worthy to God. And I found that out because people will come to you and ask you, how did that happen? Be ready to answer because it's not what you did, it's what he did on that cross. So be encouraged and let people know that I'm bigger than I look. I'm better than I look because what's in me is greater. It's greater than what you see. God can do anything but fail. Don't ever look at yourself as what you can't do. Because I'm sure if anyone would ask me what I'm doing, I'll tell them just like this, I don't know, but I know I love him. And each time I say that, each time I feel that, each time I bring that out, he brings me closer to him. And just when you think you love him so much, he'll show you more and more and more, and it'll overflow into people. And you can't help it. And then before you know it, God will say, I want you to go. I had people last week, they were on my Zoom for 3 months. And last Friday, the ones that were the quietest that did not speak, spoke out. And I said, it was time to not just testify, but just praise him. I had people that were normally just won't even show their face, were coming on showing their face and confessing him. Confess him and watch what he does. Go into your quiet place and confess him. I love you, Lord. Just tell him, I love you. You won't even make sense. But that agape love, it didn't make sense to us that a loving God would die like that. But he rose to give us all power. And don't worry about what people think of you. It's what God thinks of you. And if he loves you, if he be for you, who can be? My enemies, I remember the dealers, the drug dealers that used to take advantage of me. Now they're calling me to come pray for them. They're saying, wow, because they see the difference. They see the God in you. Can you pray for me? I can't stop. How did you stop? It was only him. So be encouraged. The love that God put in you, don't hold it back. Loose it, loose it, loose it. Close your eyes, let those chains that bind it, loose it. And if you let God bind up hate and separation and depression, let him bind that up, but loose the gifts. If you love, love. If you can preach, preach. If you can teach, teach. If you can encourage, encourage. And watch what God does. He will expand your territory. What? I got more people. My phone right now has so many text messages that I have to almost pick and choose what I answer, because I could be on the phone the whole night. And I'm saying, Lord, you would use me, because all I did was open my mouth and say, I love the Lord. And they watch you. So be encouraged. The one thing I would tell people is to love. Love. Let go and let God and love, and watch what happens. Watch what happens. Thank you.
Well, listen, I truly thank you for those encouraging words to the people and the viewers who will be watching this episode. And may God continue to smile upon you and your family and your ministry as you keep moving forward. All right. Until next time, guys, this is Talking with Pastor. I'm your host, Dax Bajet. Have a great evening. And remember, continue to let your light shine. God bless.
God bless you. Thank you, everybody.
Keep it going now. I thought I told you that.